All right, cool. We're recording. Sweet, guys. So for those of you that don't know Marty on the call, Marty's the guy in the top right-hand corner with the bald head. He's going to start talking in a second. So Marty's one of our coaches at CrossFit Minerva. He's our weightlifting expert, I would say. And the backstory is Marty used to be my boss about like 7 or 8 years ago at another CrossFit gym that we both worked at, that Marty was managing. And he kind of taught me originally to snatch back in the day. And I remember watching him snatch like 90 kilos and being like, how can this skinny guy snatch 90 kilos? And then I found out that his max was like something like 110 or 120 at the time. And I was like, shit, this is insane that he can put that sort of weight over his head. So I thought, well, get him on tonight because he's got a ton of knowledge. He's squatted over 200, snatched like 120, cleaned like 150. So you kind of don't really get those solid numbers without learning something along the way. So the way we'll do this, I'll ask him a couple of questions. I'll give him a chance to kind of give a little bit of a bio about himself. And then if you guys have any questions, just type them in the chat box. That's the easiest way to do it. And then when I say like questions at the end, just hit send and then I'll read them all out to Marty rather than me unmute everyone and then the background noise is kind of chaotic. So be thinking of your questions as you go and get them ready in the chat box so they're ready to go. Marty also owns Activate Foods, which is the banner that's on the wall in the gym. So it's a meal prep company and that's what I eat basically when we're at work all day, every day. So I'm going to unmute Marty. I'll let him give a quick little bio and then we'll get stuck in. Hardy's just jumped on as well. All right, go for it, mate. You should be good to go.
All right, sweet. So yeah, as Tommy said, I come from a chef background, cooking for over 20 years, got sick of the shitty lifestyle, eating all the wrong foods, working all the wrong hours and sleeping and drinking too much and all the things that are fun in life but don't really contribute to good health and fitness. I made the decision to get out of that, get into health and fitness. Started in a Globo gym. Never liked cardio, never liked classes, didn't like that, just liked to do my own thing. Knew that I didn't know enough, so I paid for early, straight up paid for personal training from 2 or 3 different coaches. Quickly found out that I liked strength training and then quickly got hooked into CrossFit through other coaches as well. So that's like a short, brief bio. Naturally, always been, my body adapts well to strength as opposed to cardio. Some people might say that it takes, months for them to get strong, but they can pick up the cardio really easily. For me, if I don't work 3 months on cardio before the open, I'm struggling, whereas I can not worry about my squatting for a while and pick it up before the open. I can still do multiple thrusters and whatnot. So a bit lucky in that sense that my body type does adapt well to strength training. And then outside of that, just spent a lot of years in the gym. So I got my personal training certificate in 2009, my CrossFit level 1 certificate in 2010. And basically have been in a gym ever since. So yeah, and currently, 24 years old, Jody, or formerly known as 37 years old. So quite a few years training as well.
Sweet, that's a good point. So I was going to touch on your squat strength, but the one thing I was going to ask you was how long you've been training in the gym, because you've got massive numbers, but you've also done like 10 years plus of strength training. So it's not like a quick process to get there. It takes a long time. So the first question I've got for you is like what's your favorite program or favorite tips to improve your back squat and your front squat? And what would you say to someone that's trying to improve those lifts at the moment?
So the biggest thing is it's not easy and it takes time. So for me, since I started training, I've been lucky. I've been in the gym. So I would squat or clean in the morning and I would do a CrossFit workout in the afternoon and I would be religious pretty much 6 days a week with at least, so say 6 days a week with 2 to 3 double sessions a day for years. So the major thing is you have to rock up. You have to be there. You have to do the work that's entailed, whether you like it or not, in the days that you don't like it, to see any results, first of all. And then from then it's just pushing your numbers and mixing it up.
Yeah, that's one of the things I hate squatting with you a lot of the time because you make me do the hard squat sessions that I just don't want to do. And one of the biggest things I learned like recently training with you is just like, you just got to push through the shit that you don't like, and it hurts, and you just got to suck it up and just keep doing those really hard squat sessions. And that's what builds your strength, not
exactly
the sessions that you get away with.
Taking yourself out of the comfort zone. So I had a few personal training clients who we used to joke around about, like, I've never been a fan of like motivational quotes, but one thing I always say to people is, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And I don't mean that in the gay sense about, oh, get out there and enjoy life and do things. But it's like, if you do your last set of back squats and you think you've got something left, then we were always like led to the point where you need to go back and do another set. So it might say 5 by 5, but if you finish 5 by 5 and it feels a little bit easier, like you left something behind, then you need to do one more set, because that means the first set was a warm up, which obviously isn't in people's mentality. For me, I can do that. I wouldn't do the same thing with burpees, but I'll be happy to do that with squatting or lifting of any sense.
Yeah, and on squatting, one of the programs that you love and that I've been following recently, and we were doing this in the gym before we went into lockdown, is the Wendler 5-3-1 cycle. So can you explain kind of the concept of that, or like how that works with the max effort set at the end, and why you think that that works? Because it's kind of what you were just saying.
Yeah, so as I've said to you a few times, I reckon all of my base strength came off that Wendler program. When I started at CrossFit Plus, Corey put that on as like a base strength program. We used it for back squat, deadlift, strict press, and we replaced bench press with clean, because then we just weren't doing much bench, and I think we only had one bench in the gym. We followed that probably for a good 3 years. So the good thing with that is, you work off a sub max, so you're not pushing to 100% of a 1 RM all the time, which can be it's more mentally taxing than physically. People think, oh, you can't push your 1 RM all the time because it's going to hurt tendons and whatnot, but it's more mentally. If you don't hit a 1 RM regularly, then it's going to mentally hurt you and leave you feeling deflated. So the good thing with that is it's working off a sub max. Your last set is always a max reps. So again, like I said about having that last set, making sure you've got nothing left in that last set. And if your last set isn't hard and you don't push yourself, when it comes to strength training, this is specifically, you're not going to get stronger. You have to take yourself out of your comfort zone and push yourself. And it doesn't mean rounded back and folded over and going into poor form. It means literally, like, you'll know mentally whether that last set's the max. So with the 5-3-1, you got the 3 weeks, first of all. So you got the 5 max. So it's easy to hit 6 or 7 at, 80% of your sub max, I think, on the first week, or 85?
85, yeah. Week 1's 85.
So the second week is your 3-3-3. So again, it's easy to buy yourself 1 or 2 extra reps in that rep range, which is still making you stronger. And then that last week. So progressively over time, you're pushing yourself in different domains. So as long as you're over 80% and you're pushing to your max, then you're going to be getting goals, basically, and getting new PBs and getting strength gains, basically. So being on that program is a good basis. It doesn't crush you physically. It doesn't crush you mentally. So you're not left at the end of it feeling fried like some other programs that I've followed, which do get results, but it's more importantly in the gym every week to get those results rather than going back and forth and feeling broken.
Yeah, so Wendler's probably like a good, and I think you'll agree, it's a good program you can do on top of your CrossFit training, because it's so low volume. It's not like explain like the difference between that and like a small low. You've done small off right before?
Yeah, 100%. So small off is a program you need to follow on its own. You can't do CrossFit and small off. I've tried it even just on bench press when I was trying to do CrossFit. And that's when my shoulder niggles, hip niggles and things would come in when you're taking on extra load. Small off works, for an example, because it has the volume, which is concentrated on a single lift, which gets you results in that lift. Your 5-3-1 is spread out across different lifts. You're still pushing max, but it's spread out across an entire week. So you can mix that up with your CrossFit as well easily without taking, the risk of injuries and poor form as well at the same time. So that's probably one of the benefits as well.
Yeah, I think the volume of that help just lends itself to CrossFit really well, hey, because you can do it before a class. It only takes 15, 20 minutes.
Yep.
And you're pushing intensity as well, which a lot of CrossFit workouts is just how hard you can kind of bring the intensity and not being afraid to go into that pain cave a little bit on that last set.
Definitely.
Sweet. The next question I've got is how to improve or your best accessory exercises or your best tips to improve your squat without squatting. So say, for example, like we're already following a Wendler program in the gym for, say we're already back squatting on Wendler every Monday in the gym, but you want to work even harder on improving your back squat and you really need to bring that up. It's a priority of yours. Like what accessory work would you be doing outside of classes or would you recommend to do to improve your squat without actually squatting?
So there's numerous things. So I found over the years, you just need to be doing things that are specific to the movement. So my go-to, as everyone knows, is lunges, which is no one likes them. And no one likes them because they hurt. But the beauty is they only hurt once. It's like if you haven't done 100 wall balls in a while, if I did 100 wall balls tomorrow, I'd be buggered. But if you regularly and repeatedly do them on a low impact, like lunges, on the same movement pattern for what you want to improve, so like your back squat, and it's a hip hinge, and it's going to get your glutes stronger and your hamstrings and your quads and your lower back, then doing something like that repetitively is going to, it's going to help you get your lifts up. It's going to make you feel stronger in the positions you feel weaker at. But it's also going to not wear you down and wear you out. Like it's not like hitting a 1RM is not going to help you. If you hit 3 1RMs in a week, that's only 3 lifts. If you do 600 lunges in a week, which sounds stupid, but it's going to pay off in dividends in the long run for a back squat. In saying that, in the moment, I'd have 2 definite favorites, good mornings and lunges. Good mornings because it keeps your whole posterior chain in shape and tight and strong, which in order to just hold up a back squat, you need to be able to support that for starters before you worry about driving with your hips or glutes. And then the lunges as well. And as I've gone through the years, I've changed different things about, so I think I've always been a fan of good mornings, but now I'm moving into heavy good mornings. And I'm finding that heavy good mornings are having a big impact on that as well, because that gives your body even more strength at the end range as well. So I'd probably say good mornings, or lunges first of all, and then good mornings is a close second for a favorite to improve your back squats and have carryover to lots of other things as well.
Yeah, everyone hates lunges, but when we were doing them heavy back like late last year, like 80 kilo walking lunges, they worked really well. That was my squat was at its best when we were doing those every week. My other question, this is a like high bar versus low bar, and it's just got no hardies on the call. Can you explain the difference between high bar squats and low bar squats and like the muscle recruitment between the two, and who wants to do a high bar squat and who wants to do a low bar squat, and which one you think's got to carry over more to your CrossFit training?
So that's one conversation that I would say is a borderline arrogant answer. And I'd say everyone who's here and everyone who's in your gym is here to do CrossFit. So therefore, everybody who's here needs to be in an upright torso position, which you're only going to get from a high bar back squat. And the carryover to your wall ball, clean, deadlift, thruster, dumbbell snatch, box jump, running, everything is going to be tenfold from a high bar back squat compared to a low bar. And that is not saying that I don't think that a low bar back squat is good, but it's different horses for different courses. If powerlifting was an event in CrossFit solely, then I would say low bar back squat, because then, or not just adding it, but that's because that's going to add a huge carryover to your glutes, your lower back, your hamstrings as well. But like I said before, if you're looking for an accessory work to get your squat up, if you want your squat up to be up for your CrossFit, then you need to also be good at Olympic lifting. So I would swap a low bar back squat for a heavy good morning any day, along with heavy back squats. So I'm not anti them, but I just don't think that it has the carryover for what we need and what we're looking for in CrossFit. If someone came to me and said, oh, I really like it and has a good transfer, I know some people that move well in that position and it does carry over a little bit for them. But general pop, people who want to improve CrossFit, I'd go definitely high bar back squat. And that's, yeah, if you think of the position that you want someone to be in to catch a good clean or to catch a good wall ball, and the position you need to be into with a low bar back squat, then yeah, I think it sums it up. So it's not that I don't think that it's good. I just don't think it's good for what we're looking for in the CrossFit community, basically. And not just a CrossFit, like it's all changing now. So the general physical preparedness, people who want to be able to do multiple things. And I think, yeah, definitely go with the high bar. Personal opinion, controversial to a whole lot of people, but I reckon that's the way to go.
Yeah, I asked that one because that always splits people and divides people, hey.
Yeah.
But I agree with that. I think for CrossFit, it should be a high bar back squat because that's how you catch you clean is a high bar back squat. Rocco, which is, I think it's Davo, has asked what a low bar back squat is. Basically, Davo, it's like instead of holding the bar high up on your traps, it's lower down on your delts. So it's held like in the upper part of your lower trap. So it's lower on your back. And what you'll do is you'll squat with like a more inclined torso. So you squat in and lean in over a little bit more. Now, it helps you lift a heap more weight squatting that way because you can engage, like what Marty was saying, you're going to engage your posterior chain a little bit more. So you're going to use a little bit more low back, a little bit more hamstrings, but it won't carry over to the clean as well. So it's like exactly what he said. It's like horses for courses. Like if you want to squat the most weight, probably low bar. But if you want to improve your clean, probably high bar or definitely high bar.
There's a reason why world record holders in back squat do a low bar back squat. And that's because it's biomechanically the best way to do that. So like I said, if it came out to do that, if it was a CrossFit event, then yeah, I can see it happening. But just for, and I'm not anti it at all. I just don't think that it fits in with what we're doing, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's trying to improve the ollie lifts, high bar. Yeah. The next question, let's get into the fun, like the actual fun lift. So what's your best tips for someone to improve on their clean, like their power clean or their squat clean? Like how would you approach that in terms of a training week, like a training methodology, like sets and reps or accessory exercises? How do you think you could help the general person kind of improve?
Anyone who's come to me when they're doing CrossFit training and a CrossFit program in any gym over the last 10 years, I always say basically pull. So first of all, your ability to lift more weight off the ground, and that doesn't mean a deadlift. So a pull's that full extension, driving your toes into the ground, keeping your body straight, finishing tall, doing multiple reps. So if you're weak in the pull and you can't get the weight off the ground, then I would treat it like a strength exercise and go 3 to 4 sets of 8 reps or 5 sets. Now, it's a supplementary. It's like lunges. You could do that 3 times a week and do walking lunges and do all the programming that Tommy has, and it's not going to be too taxing on your body, but it definitely will have a huge improvement in you pulling the weight from the ground. Another problem can be explosiveness, so a lot of power movements as well. So without watching someone, they'd be the 2 go-to things. A, do you have the strength to get off the ground? And B, I know a lot of people who are very strong who can get the weight to a deadlift position, but just can't physically comprehend getting the weight to their shoulders at the same time, which then comes to power and speed on the other side.
If someone's going to implement pulls into their training program, what sort of weight do you want them using for that? Like between 90 to 105, 110% of their 1RM clean?
Yeah, definitely. So you want to be over 80% to get a result from it to start with for that lift. So you wouldn't go try and pull 80% of a deadlift. You'd be pulling, you want to mimic the lift that you're trying to do. So snatch pulls are great because they're in a great position. You're going to get more upper body, upper back in that, and mid trap as well. Getting into that position, doing it, up to 80 to 100% of that lift, which can sound like a lot, like you said, 110%, which can sound like a lot. But if you're someone who snatches 60 kilos, I'm pretty sure you can deadlift 80 kilos. So if you're just pulling 110% of a 60 kilo lift, then there's no issues. And same, even for someone who's strong, I mean, me now, I can still deadlift, but I can't snatch much more than 100 at the moment, not being in a gym. For me to do 110% of that is still not a big number. So it sounds like a lot, but it's not. And then to do that weight 4 sets of 8 and controlled. So I'm a big fan of like a nice strong pull and then steady back down, touch the ground and then go again. So the eccentric going down, it also helps with your pulling, which is a good point after training at Mingara with Oxygen with Tommy when he worked for us. We couldn't dump a bar. So if we did a set of anything, it was always an eccentric, lowering it down really slowly to the ground because we weren't allowed to drop it. And I think that actually did have a big improvement on my strength over the years as well, being in that environment for a good 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, that was my next question. Actually, you already hit it, but on like the value of tempo work or the value of slow eccentric work?
Yeah, the things you hate. Sitting in there. So me and Pitts over at CrossFit Plus, when we used to do it, we used to argue and scream at each other about who was having the timer that we actually had to go with the timer in front of the other person for a 3-second or a 5-second count in the back squat and a 3-second pause, because you always thought the person behind you was lying to you. And that's why if you ever do tempo work in the gym, I'll always have the stopwatch out, because people are probably 50 to 100% faster than what it should be. So all of a sudden 1, 2, 3 turns into 1 to 3. But time under tension is what makes you stronger. And to get stronger, if you're doing 3 seconds, it's really only 1.5 seconds. You're actually robbing yourself 50% of any gains you're going to make. But then, yeah, no one likes to be in that horrible position. I think anyone who's trained my classes and had the stopwatch out knows that, and hate me for that.
No cuzzy counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Exactly.
The next one, the lift that people probably have the most problems with is the snatch. What do you see as the biggest problems with most, like the generalized population in the snatch, and what's the easiest way people could add like 5 kilos onto their snatch?
So there's probably a billion things that people could work on with their snatch. I think that's a hard one. Technique, but that's like a kind of a BS answer. It's like, oh, your technique needs work, but what is technique work? So technique work is like your pulls, your positions, practicing your perfect position. So a lot of the time, like, okay, so I've done a few weightlifting courses over the years with really reputable American-based coaches. So first I was Donnie Shankle, who was an American weightlifting champion, who I'm pretty sure he either went to the Olympics or the Commonwealth Games and was a multi-medalist. Most of the stuff you do with these guys before you even get a chance to lift heavy is repetitive work with an empty barbell, so that your hamstrings are on fire, you're in the right position, you repeat it. And it's not until like you've done 2-3 hours of that they finally go, okay, now let's try and add some weight. So when we say technique, it's not just grabbing a dowel and just doing the movement. It's locking those positions. When Tommy or your coaches who are doing the classes are talking about driving your knees back, like you push your knees back until your hamstrings are on fire, because we did it, and then they make you hold 40 kilos and then they put their hand on it so it hurts. I mean, Tommy's done the Kolokov one. I've heard stories about his being a lot worse than the guys that I've managed to coach with, but it's being uncomfortable. It's like, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. You got to be uncomfortable in the right position so you know what it feels like. Because when you do a snatch, I mean, what have you got? Probably less than a second or just over a second when the bar gets from the ground to over your head. So you need to know what those exact positions feel like and what they're right. So I reckon technique work, but not just watching someone else, but listening and getting coached on it. And mobility, because there's some people that I can watch and they'll walk into the gym and I can see them do it for the first time and they've never tried CrossFit, but they've been in the gym, and you watch them get the bar over your head and you're like, oh, geez, this is going to take a while. But like I said, it's 10 years plus I've been doing CrossFit. If you work out how many sets of 5 snatches, how many Graces, how many Isabels or whatever it is, how many multiple sets, how many open workouts with, sets of 10 snatches, that's probably hundreds of thousands of repetitions of a snatch that we've done, or I've done personally over the years, that when people go, oh, it looks effortless, you got to put the work in. You have to do the repetitions, you have to do them repetitively, you have to practice and practice and practice and practice and practice, unfortunately, which is the boring answer that people don't like hearing, because everyone wants to be good now. But yeah, technique and mobility, probably the 2 of the key things. Strength will come later. I've seen very weak, young, frail females that I watch lift a bar. I'm like, oh, geez, they're going to break. And they blow me away with how much they can actually snatch from very short time in the gym. So, yeah, don't be put off that you might be strong.
Yeah, I think the snatch is a little bit more about like positions and technique and speed, and the clean is a little bit more about strength, right?
Yeah,
like you can get away with like someone that's weak can still snatch really well if they move really well and they got good positions and good mobility. But if you're weak, you can't clean really well because you have to actually have the leg strength to stand up.
But the good thing is, once you work out your technique and your mobility, you can start to treat that like a clean, and you can start to hit heavier numbers more repetitively. And that's when your results really come in. When you can dial in that stuff early, then you get to have the fun and enjoy working hard and heavy on the other side to get the results.
And your if you had to pick 2 accessory exercises for the snatch, what would your 2 accessory movements be?
Snatch grip deadlift, so slow and steady off plates, and snatch pulls off plates. I've been back and forth with overhead squats or snatch, grip, push, press. It depends. For me personally, it's those two, because it's the ability to get the weight off the ground. Once I've got it overhead, I'm okay. But to begin with, it was snatch, grip, push, press, and snatch balance that probably were helping me in the confidence to get into that position. You see regularly a lot of people that can get it up and they have to power snatch it and then overhead squat. So if you can think of how high the bar is on an overhead squat compared to being in the bottom position of a snatch, that difference in speed that you can make just by getting under there. So yeah, when you begin, that can be a big helpful one as well.
Yeah, they're exactly my two favorite accessory exercises as well, like snatch deadlifts from a deficit and snatch pull, and just working on the positioning. And that's when I've done all the Klokov courses. That's what he just hammers you on over and over again, is just holding positions from a deficit. And I think what Marty was saying there as well is like whatever, like when he said he went back and forth on overhead squats, like if overhead is your weakness, then that's what you need to work on. But if the pull is your weakness, that's what you need to work on. So it's kind of diagnosing what is the weaker part for you.
So when I snatched 120 and my overhead squat was like 122, and then we played around with overhead squat and my overhead squat went to like 135, but my snatch didn't move. Whereas all the work leading into that was all pull, everything, all the base groundwork, which made the difference. So, and the only reason I went into the overhead was like, or maybe if I tried this also, it might see a carryover, but it was one of the biggest things. I was like, well, no, there was nothing for me. And then when it comes for more bang with your buck and you want to work on things that are going to make a difference, we just scrapped it and just went, well, we don't really need to be able to do a CrossFit overhead squat heavy if it's not going to help the snatch as well.
Yeah, I did exactly the same thing. I pushed my overhead squat to like 20 kilos more than my snatch, and it made zero difference other than just beat up my wrists.
Yeah, feels good. That's it.
Yeah. Guys, if you've got questions, start typing them away in the chat box, and then I'll start reading them out. I know there'll be a couple. One last question is like bulletproofing work. So what I mean by that is like to be able to snatch and clean and jerk really often, you need to be able to keep your body healthy. And I know we do a ton of it in our training together, but what are your top exercises to keep your body healthy so that you can perform the snatch and the clean and jerk over and over again?
So I neglected my upper body, so my back and my shoulders. I've always had a good pull up, so outside of that. But as far as like rear delt work and shoulder work and rotational work, never did anything until I left and went to Mingara. And I was like, oh, there's nothing else to do. And then it was kind of the ignorance thing. I started going back and training with Tommy. And I was like, wow, I haven't snatched in 3 weeks and I can still snatch 100. And man, my shoulders still feel really good and really strong. So as much as I love my legs, like supplementary work with your lower body, legs and hamstrings and everything, which I'll always do, I always now make sure that I'm doing, even at home now while we're in isolation, doing kettlebell rows, high pulls, and I've got some TheraBand things at home that I found around doing shoulder rotational work as well. So as much work as you can. And again, you can do that outside of a CrossFit class and you're not going to put yourself at risk for injury. So you can finish a class and do, I've been told, like repetitions of your back. So 5 sets of 20 reps of band pull aparts to balance out your shoulder work that you do in CrossFit. You can still do that and not put yourself at risk of injury as well. So definitely you can't do too much basically when it comes to overhead. To like shoulder work.
I'm just going to mute someone. Someone's gone off and it's done. Sweet.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So yeah, shoulder rotational work. So band pull aparts, bent over rows, dumbbell flies, anything to do that's going to strengthen your shoulders in a good position and not heavy. I'm that guy when I go to Mingara and I feel somewhat embarrassed when I'm lifting my shoulder weights. I go the lighter weights, I do the higher reps, I'm in the right position. And if you tried to get me to do 3 more reps or 2 more kilos, I physically couldn't do it. And there's young guys doing double it. But the difference is that they're not doing it properly. They're doing it to look good whilst doing it, not to look good once they've done it. So it's being confident that the light weights like 1, 2, 3, 4 kilos on flies and things like that, and being in the right position and feeling the right muscles working is going to have a bigger impact than anything else you can do.
There's one other one that I haven't touched on so far, and it's the jerk. So like your push jerk, your split jerk, and then your squat jerk, because you squat jerk. Can you explain kind of like the difference between the three, who should use what one, and then your best way to improve your jerk?
Cool. So squat jerk looks pretty, and I only started doing it because my leg position was so out of whack training irregularly. So if I went back and I could commit to training 5 days a week on Olympic lifting, then I'd go back to split. But I can also overhead squat in a narrow grip that same maximal weight. So I've got the shoulder mobility. So the only people who should be doing that is people who can overhead squat narrow, close and fast without risk of feeling that they're going to put their shoulders off. Power jerk, the only people I like to see power jerking is if they can out power jerk their split jerk once they have experience. So if someone comes into the gym and they're like, oh, my 1RM clean and jerk 70 kilos and I can power jerk it, but if I split jerk it, I can't get it, then I'm like, it's too late. I'm sorry, but you need to work on your split jerk, because 70 kilos isn't, like for a male I'm speaking, 70 kilos isn't a physical max for somebody. So therefore you're doing the power jerk because it feels good, not because, you're doing the power jerk because your split jerk doesn't feel competent. And therefore, if you get your split jerk competent, you're going to be faster under that. I've always struggled with split jerk. It's always been my down. Like as Tommy said, I can clean 150 kilos, and my all-time ever max, which was off blocks, was 140 on a split jerk. So I still haven't clean and jerk. I think my all-time clean and jerk from the ground is only 137, and that's purely because of my clean. I mean, I could double clean 137, but I cannot put it over my head in a split jerk. But I can't put it over my head in a power jerk, and I can't put it over my head in a squat jerk. It's just, I don't know what it is, whether it's something I've always said I need to work on. I need to go and pay like a good quality Olympic weightlifter to work with me on that instance. But for my training like experience and whatnot, then there's nothing wrong with that. I still wouldn't have changed it, because it's my split jerk was still always heavier than my power jerk. But now with the minimal training, and I haven't even squat jerked in God knows how long, I did manage to get a current 1RM on squat jerk, but still nowhere near my all-time. So yeah, so it goes by abilities. Each has different horses for different courses. If you're doing a CrossFit workout, go for power jerk. It's less taxing on the legs. But if you're going for maximal lift, then I go split jerk. Unless you just want, like sometimes you just look at someone and go, wow, your power jerk's amazing, and don't bother with the split. And it's not because the split's bad, it's because their power position is so fast, so strong and so good that anyone can see it and just go, yeah, wow, like you need to do that. But unfortunately, there's probably, there's slim to not many people around. And if I did get back into weightlifting, I would start doing split jerk again, because it's the most competent lift to do.
And your favorite accessory exercises for the jerk, whether it's a push jerk, a split jerk, or a squat jerk, like what would be your top accessories to do for that? Would it be a push, like are you a fan of push press or more strict press, or like there's a lot of like funky jerk exercises you can do, like jerk supports or split strict presses, and you can kind of go down the rabbit hole and do a lot of weird shit with the jerk. But do you prefer that, or just like the basic push press and strict press kind of thing?
Yeah, push press, strict press to get stronger, to get the drive, because before you worry about what you can catch overhead, you got to get it up. So most people can't get the concept of driving the weight with their body and not using their hands. So push press, even push press over strict press, push press and power jerk, probably my two favorites for that. And then always splitting on all of your lifts. So when we were lifting, we were doing all your warm-up sets, then it'd be like three position cleans plus jerk under fatigue, or 3 sets of 3 cleans plus jerk. So there's a lot of volume of split jerk, split jerk, split jerk, so that my supplementary split jerk's a power and a technique movement. To get better at that, you need to get more powerful. So therefore you practice your push press and your push jerk, which gives you the drive, and then your technique, which is what you're doing on your lifts as well. So I think you can't, apart from the stability work, it'd be push press, and push jerk for the win on those, definitely.
And one last one, guys, if anyone's got any questions, type in the chat box, but I'm just looking at who's on this call, and I know there's a few people in this boat. If you're clean, so like, you know, when I clean, my clean and my front squat are basically exactly the same. And there's a few people on this call that I like that, like Dave-O would be pretty close. Joe would be really close like that. Kurt's pretty close like that. Hardy's not, but there's a fair, Tish is basically spot on as well. So for those guys that are cleaning like upwards of 90% of their 1RM front squat, can you explain like where you need to invest your time in that? It's not about pushing up your clean, but you need to build your leg strength up, and what specifically you would do for that.
Lots of front squats, lots of good mornings, lots of lunges, and lots of pulls. So if those numbers are too close, or if your cleans only, or power cleans 90% of what your front squat is, then you don't have the power to get the power and the strength to get the bar off the ground. So I've always squatted way more and deadlifted way more than any of my cleans. So when my clean was 150, I was front squatting PB 178. So I was pushing 180 kilos on a front squat. So if you look at that gap, there's a big gap. There's only one person who I knew, who I've trained with over the years as a competent lifter, who could snatch 115 and clean 130 and jerk 140 was Tim. And he had unbelievable speed. So he had no strength in the squat. I think his max back squat was like 160. And keep in mind, I was squatting 200 and lifting the same as him. So that shows you the speed that he's got in it and the technique. So yeah, I think unless you're ridiculously fast, like what he was, and he was one of the only person I've ever trained with who could do that, then you need to get the ability to get the bar off the ground, get underneath it, which is front squats. Front squats, that's probably one thing. I've always gone back to front squats because it carries over for so many things. I don't do it now because it sucks and I'm on my own training at home. I probably should, but it does have a huge carryover because it keeps your torso upright, still keeps you strong. It's a position you want to do specifically if you're fixing your clean and jerk as well, and snatch, because it carries over as well. But yeah, front squat regularly, pull regularly, just lift. You got to lift lots and often.
So basically more accessories breaking down the lift and less of the actual lift itself.
If they're too close, then it's like you need to get better at one of them. You see, your technique needs to dramatically improve, or your strength needs to go up to compensate, you know, that lack in that little gap.
We've got one question in there from Parker. He says, how does he get rid of his butt wink in the squat? He's pretty young, so I'm surprised he's got a butt wink because his form will be pretty good. But it's from Mel. She's just on Parker's account.
Mel, I don't even know if you got a butt wink, if that's asking for you. It's practice and technique, and it's front squatting, and it's holding your back tight. It's good mornings. It's wide stance good mornings. It's lunging more often. So it's a weakness in your hips, and it's where your hips are sitting. And it can be mobility, so a massage, regular massage, like anything in there that if it's not aligned and your hips are going to tilt, then you need to compensate for that. So if your butt winking in, normally your glutes aren't strong enough, or your glutes are too strong and your lower back's not strong enough. So it's working on all of those multi-joint lifts, like a deadlift, a pull, front squats even, and getting into that position. Also look at the position of your feet. So I was always really narrow with my squat on everything. It was basically the same position as my deadlift, and people used to watch me and go, that's just stupid, how do you do it? To the point where I tried to change, and I did my CrossFit level 1, and they're like, oh no, your feet are too close together and everyone should be like this. And I spent probably 2 years trying to get my feet further out, thinking it's going to help everything. It ruined my depth, it ruined my hips, it ruined my knees. It's knowing what works for you too. So try moving your feet. If it feels funny, like I notice a lot of people are probably too wide, and therefore the knees come in, the shoulders come in, and everything comes in, and then the butt rolls under, and it looks like a bit of a train wreck. So it's working on, like, try things, change them around a little bit, but because people get so drastic, and I'm like, I'll bring your feet in a bit, and they go from this wide down to that, and it's like, no. start with an inch and see how it feels, or go out by an inch and see how it feels. And you'll be amazed. Like, I even found naturally toes quite far out and feet quite close together. I squatted my 1RM at that weight. So, and anyone who does a CrossFit course or anything like that will be told that that's incorrect and that it's not right. That no two bodies are the same. Everybody's bone length's different. Everybody's hip hinge joints are different. So yeah, give it a crack. Hope that helps.
There was one other question. It's a hard one, but I'll just pull it up. It's how often should you lift per week? Because it's kind of independent on the person, but as a generalized answer.
So I consider back squat, deadlift, and a front squat as a lift as well, because pretty much what we would, for the bulk of our training, we would do a snatch on Monday, full snatch, power clean on Tuesday, a snatch and back squat Monday, power clean on Tuesday, clean on Wednesday, and a front squat. Thursday be rest day, Friday be both clean and snatch and squat, and Saturday was snatch and clean max. So that's 6 days training, 3 of those days are double days. So it's like, what, 6 to 8 times a week for lifting. But that's to get where we were. But I was getting up at 5 o'clock, teaching 2 classes and training, going home, playing with the kids, eating, sleeping, getting back up, training, teaching for 3 hours in the afternoon. So obviously lifestyle suited to what we were doing. And if you want to lift big numbers, you basically, like I couldn't lift what I lifted then now, purely based on my lifestyle, purely on the hours that I can afford to train, the recovery I can afford to do, and the hours that I can commit to being in the gym. So it's taking it into account. If you want to improve your lifts and you've got the time, then yeah, and you've got the equipment, then yeah, I reckon regularly, but you need to be on a program. You can't just willy-nilly do it. It needs to coincide with what you're doing in the CrossFit gym as well. I would skip CrossFit sessions so I could lift, basically.
Troy's loving that. You can see that smile on his face.
He's lift more.
Yeah.
But you'll always suck at burpees, not at CrossFit, at burpees.
Yeah, you can't have everything. If you're going to invest that much time into lifting, something's got to give, right? Like, you can't do all of that and still do metcons and still do muscle ups and rowing and everything at the same time. You can't ride 2 horses with one ass.
Yeah. And funny enough, when I was overtraining, it was my desperate need to do more CrossFit that stuffed me up in lifting and gave me more injuries and stopped both of them. So if you're wanting to solely be a lifter, then you can't do too much of the not supplementary CrossFit classes where you're doing 100 thrusters and then walking out trying to do cleans and pulls the next day. Your back's going to go, and then you're not going to be able to do both of them. But if you want to get better at lifting to improve your CrossFit, then that's different. Then you need to be doing the supplementary work around your CrossFit classes, and you'll still get great numbers. You'll still be able to do 100 burpees in 3 minutes, I think it is, Jody. But hey, that won't impress anyone.
There's one more question in the chat box. What's the best way to improve on cardio quickly? I think you got the wrong guest there, Tish. We bought the defib for Marty when he came in to start doing cardio with us. So I think you're asking the wrong person.
Don't
go
lift
for
as
it. Yeah,
much. Oh, hang on. No, do 10 by 10 back squats on a weekly basis with Tommy. Because I know a lot of people who are really good at cardio who can't do that. So therefore, you can have your cake and you can eat it too.
Yeah, that cycle worked really well. That was brutal. I think there's one more question. I'll just pull it up. Bye-bye CrossFit from Troy. He's stoked.
Sorry.
He just wants a lift. Sweet. No other questions?
Cool.
Well, thanks for jumping on, mate. I'll stop recording this and I'll let everyone kind of chat, but thanks heaps for giving us your time tonight. Hopefully everyone took something of value away from that.
Awesome.
I'll unmute all of you guys. All right.
Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Martin.
Thank you.
So Marty, you doing PT?
My spare time.
Plenty of spare time.
At the moment, well, actually, not at the moment.
Thanks, Tommy. Thanks, Marty.
Yeah, mate.
He's happy.
Thank you.
See ya. No worries.
Oh, I'm not on mute anymore.
Hi, mate.
Thanks
Hey.
for that.
Kurt.
Thanks, Tommy. Thanks, Marty. Cheers.
No worries.
Alright,
Thank
mate.
you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That was awesome.